39,045 among young men in 2023. Self-removal is the leading cause of death for individuals in 25 to 34. The rates are actually much higher among older men, but all men are at higher risk, up to 4 times greater than that of women. In 2001, I was in college. And while I was in college, a relationship I really wanted to happen ended up not working out. At the time, I was pretty devastated. It was the first time I was ever seriously interested in somebody, and when it didn't work out, I did not handle it personally super amazingly. And because of that, I ended up getting a 1.9 GPA at my college, which was a private school at the time. And because of my very low GPA, I no longer qualified for the grants that were helping me to be able to afford that private school. After that spring, I ended up going back home to work and make money and try to figure out how to recover my terrible GPA. And while I was home, my dad, bless his heart, really encouraged me to maybe consider switching schools. Now, the hard thing was while I was at that private school, I made some of the closest friends I had ever made in my entire life from those 2 years we were there at that school. Very good friends. However, again, my GPA was in the dog water, and I lost my grant. And again, I want to take full responsibility for that. I could have handled that situation better, and I just didn't. So, because of that, I made the very difficult decision to stop going to school with some of my very close friends, and instead switch to a local state school. Now, my friends were only 3 hours away, but I had been planning on going to that college for like forever. It was kind of like my dream school, if you would. And it felt like such a personal, colossal failure to not be able to maintain a grade to stay at that private school with my friends and instead have to switch to a state school. But I did make that switch. It was an extremely difficult decision to make. I felt like such a failure. It's hard to describe. Like, man, I blew it. That was it. But I figured if I really knuckled down at this state school, at least I could graduate at the same time as my friends, right? Well, cut to my very first semester in school. Mentally, I'm in a terrible place. I left my dream school, I left my close friends, and that relationship really wrecked me emotionally. And I'm now at a school I really didn't want to be at. That first semester, I failed an easy class. I failed business English. A kindergartner with half a crayon could pass business English. And because of my mental state, I failed an easy class. And because of that failure, it really felt like I wouldn't be able to graduate on time with my friends. And at the time, it just felt like everything important I wanted to do in life, I just failed at instantly, and hugely too. Now overall, while I was at the state school, I passed all my other classes that semester, but I failed the easiest class. I felt like such a failure. And I remember, I very distinctly remember driving home one evening. It was very cloudy, and it was the evening I knew I wasn't going to pass that class. And that's when the thought crossed my mind to end it permanently. Now, I want to clarify something real quick. I have not had that thought since. It was a one-time thing. And it was such a shock. My first reaction, if I'm being honest, was fright. I was like, where on earth did that come from? Like, where did that thought come from? I was scared. I was scared that I could even think that I could even consider it. But for just one moment, I seriously considered just ending it. In hindsight, it seems so ridiculous, right? Like, oh, your first relationship didn't work out and you had to switch schools and you're going to graduate half a year later than all your friends. Big whoop, right? But at the time, it just felt like I had so many failures stack up, and it was just like I was just mentally devastated, if I'm being honest. And I just didn't have the tools to deal with it. It was tough. But the first thing I did after I had that thought was, well, I prayed, because I'm a Christian. But secondly, when I got home, I gave my firearm to my dad and said, hey, I'm scared to have this. I don't trust myself with it. And my dad said, okay, you need to go to therapy. And I went to therapy. I only attended a total of 3 sessions, but I did end up going, and they were very beneficial. And I wanted to first say to you young men, don't neglect therapy. Therapy is hugely important. I'm not going to be dramatic and say like I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for therapy, but therapy helped me process a lot of things I probably wouldn't have otherwise. That's why I wanted to talk to you guys today. Oh, my notes. It's Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. I just really wanted to talk to you guys. So that's my story. And again, I'm very blessed. I have faith. I have a family, and I was able to go to therapy. But in case you don't have some of those things, I wrote down some tips here, and I used Google. But I wrote down some tips that I remember from therapy that I use, and I just really hope these can be helpful for you. So number one is to talk openly. Share your feelings with friends or family or your therapist if you have one. But it's very important to admit it, because if you keep it all bottled up inside, it'll fester, it'll grow, it'll burn, it'll hurt. Number two, this one's very important, to stay active. Engage in physical activity, whether that's lifting, running, walking around outside. It boosts your mood and energy. This one's very important. Seek professional help. Seriously, guys, it's 2025, the big 25, as kids would say these days. There's no more stigma around men seeking professional therapy help. Go see somebody if you can. This one's super important. I tell this one to everyone I can. Seriously, guys, establish a routine. If you're like me and you've been dealing with depression your whole life, you gotta have that routine. That routine you can just fall back on, kind of just, basically, I like to think of it this way, guys. Imagine just walking back and forth until you build a groove in the ground. And that way, on the days where you're so depressed you can't see and you don't know where to walk, you'll have this groove that you'll just kind of bump into. And yeah, you'll bump against the wall sometimes, against that groove, but that groove will keep you going in the right direction. So establish that routine. It can save your life. Number 5 is really funny. This is some advice I personally didn't follow, but it might be great for you to follow this advice, and that is limit social media. Reduce your time spent online to avoid negative comparisons and feelings. Guys, this last one's really funny because I didn't follow this advice, but it might be great advice for you if I'm being honest, and that is to limit social media. Reduce the time spent online to avoid negative comparisons and feelings. And that one's huge. I mean, I have a decent following. Like, I'm nowhere near famous, but like, I have a following, but I still compare myself to other people and be like, wow, look at all the cool things they're doing. Look how many followers they have. And that comparison can really just suck all the joy out of your life. So get off the phone. That's very important. Get off the video games even. Go outside, chat. I hate to say it, but you might need to touch some grass. Now here's the thing. I don't want to lie to you, chat. It's not going to get easier right away. It might take a long time for you to feel better. And you know what? You might get to where you're feeling a lot better, and then you're going to have fallbacks. You're going to have great days, you're going to have bad days. It's not linear. It's kind of more like a this. But hey, as long as you're consistently making progress up, that's all that matters. Look, I know a lot of you are probably hurting right now inside, and it sucks. It feels like this lasts forever. But I just want to remind you, suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And you know what, guys? I understand. Maybe it's cloudy outside. Maybe you're hurting really bad inside. It feels like you failed at everything and you're just never going to make it again. But just remember, there's so many pretty things outside. There are butterflies and waterfalls and blue skies and stars and full moons and sunrises and sunsets you haven't seen yet. And you really, really shouldn't take away the opportunity for you to see them from one bad day. So hey, in case you don't have someone to tell you, I see that you're hanging in there, and I'm proud of you. I see that you're trying your best, and I'm proud of you. And hey, I know it hurts, and I know it hurts a lot, but someday it's not going to hurt so much, and someday even further on, it's not going to hurt at all. So hang in there, lift some weights, make a friend. You can do it.